You know, sometimes I think I've seen it all, and then I remember, no, I have not. And the topic of this video just proves that. If you can think back to the early to mid 2010s, what do you remember? For me, I'm thinking the Harry Potter franchise ending, Germany spanking Brazil at the World Cup, Gangnam Style, and of course, the Ebola outbreak. I was a young teenager at the time, and I remember it was all over the news. Would Ebola spread to the West? Would it come to the UK? Just how many people would it kill? The one I'm thinking of was not the first, nor would it be the last Ebola outbreak in Africa, but it was by far the most deadly, beginning in late 2013 and being declared over in mid-2016, impacting several countries in West Africa. It was during this time though, when Ebola was in the mainstream news, that people started to take a notice of it, and that's when the internet decided to strike. It was the 4th of August 2014 when an image of a young female anime character wearing a doctor's uniform with Ebola strains in her hair and holding a skull in her hands was uploaded to a Japanese site called Pixiv. This was the genesis. This was the catalyst. This was ground zero. This was the beginning of what I like to call the Ballad of Ebola-chan. So now we know where Ebola-chan's origins come from, but what you might not know is that she went from being a meme to a sex symbol to being at the heart of a conspiracy theory to being at the center of a cult movement, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. For now, you just need to know that she was posted on the site Pixiv in the early hours of the morning on the 4th of August 2014. A member of 4chan must have seen her though, as they brought her to the site later that same day, with an anonymous user posting this picture of her, captioned, "Would you give her a kissu?" As has happened now many times in the history of 4chan, once it finds something it likes, there is no stopping it. And so just like the disease itself, Ebola-chan started to spread, and she spread fast. Now, let it be known that she did not have a name yet. This was just a picture of an anime girl with Ebola strains in her hair. But over the next few days, this would change. As on the 7th of August, only 3 days after her first appearance on Pixiv, this image began circulating on 4chan boards, featuring the soon-to-be notorious character, accompanied by a caption referring to her as Ebola-chan, which urged its viewers to reply with the phrase, "I love you Ebola-chan" in the comment section to avoid contracting this painful, fatal disease. In reflection, it's probably this image right here that sealed its fate, as now not only did Ebola-chan have her name, but it also encouraged viewers to share it around the internet. And oh man, did this picture get shared. It was only 10 days later, on the 17th of August, that this image was reblogged by the cheeseburger site Geek Universe, which might have just caught the eye of a Redditor with the username esports lottery, as the next day they posted the original image to r/WTF. Of course, this only further spread Ebola-chan, with her now infecting yet another corner of the internet. Within the first week of this picture being up on Reddit, it garnered over 2,000 upvotes, and might have just been the reason that DeviantArt discovered her. Which, if you know anything about DeviantArt, you know it's over. It's too late, they've got her. Sound the fucking alarm! It's done, it's over, good night, rest in peace. Remember, she is the human representation of the Ebola virus, the deadly Ebola virus. And as soon as she goes onto DeviantArt, it's just fan art galore, sexualized fan art. What is this? What is that? So Ebola-chan starts on Pixiv. She's then sent to 4chan, where she is spread throughout the rest of the internet. Reddit, DeviantArt, Facebook, and the rest. The next part of this video though is where things start to take a bit of a dark turn, because up until now, the only taboo thing that's happened is that people made sexualized fan art of an anthropomorphic version of a deadly disease. But this would eventually change, because many 4chan users would also share Ebola-chan to a site called Nairaland. And this is when the story went from maybe an 8 out of 10 to an 8 million, because in the highly likely chance you haven't heard of it, Nairaland is an English-speaking Nigerian forum. It was created for domestic Nigerian residents and is actually the 6th most popular website in the entire country. And if you didn't know, Ebola actually did spread to Nigeria back during its largest outbreak. Things were contained, it wasn't a huge outbreak in the country, but it did still spread there nonetheless, even if in small portions. 4chaners knew this, of course, and they actually spread the meme to local Nigerian forums, the largest of which being Nairaland, to try and get a rise out of them, and in part, it did actually work. You see, rationally, it made sense to be afraid of Ebola. About half the people that contracted the disease actually died from it, but being afraid of a meme is a lot more irrational. The people who spread this meme on Nigerian forums banked on the fact that people's fear of Ebola would be so great that they would be afraid of anything to do with it. And they got their wish. Now here's the thing, if you look at my complexion right now, you might be able to guess that I don't actually have any Nigerian blood in me. Big shocker, I know. So I might not be the most qualified person to talk about Nigerian culture, but I have done my research, so I think that will give me at least a leg to stand on. And one thing I learnt during my research is that Nigerians, or even West Africans in general, are known for traditionally being quite superstitious people. The art of voodoo, for example, came from the kingdom of Dahomey, which was located in, you guessed it, West Africa, right outside where Nigeria is today. And because of this belief, many of the West Africans that used Nairaland were susceptible to some tomfoolery performed at the hands of these 4chaners who spread Ebola-chan on the forum. Believe it or not, the spreading of this meme would actually temporarily stoke racial relations between black and white people within West Africa. A few of the people that saw this meme would begin to theorize and came to a conspiracy theory that Ebola was created by the white race and it was actually sent down to wreak havoc on West Africa. These 4chaners had gone fishing for mayhem and now they had a bite. So they weighed their anchor down and cast their net as far as it would go. Because now they knew they could get a response from West Africans, they would go even further with the elaborate prank. Now making shrines dedicated to Ebola-chan. I mean, look at this. This is some elaborate jiggery-pokery. And it was exactly at this moment that Ebola-chan went from being a drawing, to a meme, to a sex symbol, to being at the heart of a conspiracy, now to being at the center of a cult. Some of these pictures were posted in a new thread in Nairaland titled "White Demon Worshippers Trying to Spread Ebola Using Witchcraft," which was started by John Okonkwo. There is a new racist cult in Europe and America. They hate Africans and worship an Ebola demoness who they call Ebola-chan. They perform magical rituals in order to spread the disease and kill people. They target the area they want to infect next using blood sacrifices. This is not a joke. Apparently, even some Ebola doctors are part of the cult, and instead of treating the disease, are deliberately spreading it. I even heard the rumor that they eat the heart of victims, because they think it grants them magical protection. Though I don't know if that's true. And I actually want to pause for a moment and talk about a very specific but subtle part that was dropped in John's post, and that was that because racial tensions were flared, many people wouldn't go to white doctors at the time, just in fear that they would be given the disease. This was described by a user of the name Ebony Prince, who posted in the same thread, "I ask you this. Why is everyone running from the white doctors? It's because they will infect you with Ebola. They have Ebola in their spray things that they wear on their back." To many paranoid West Africans, it was white people that started this disease. This definitely did not help things, because now people were taking spiritual or magical cures instead of quarantining or taking scientifically backed medicine. Many people would dismiss the fact that magic was to play, but nonetheless fed into these conspiracy theories, saying that science was at the center and not the metaphysical. I should also mention that some of these posts put out there I suspect were placed by trolls, but it's kind of hard to verify. But I should mention that the majority of the people on these threads were actually calling these people out, saying that their thoughts were unjustified, that there was no source of conspiracy theory, and that black magic was not real. They were trying to explain that this was bait. This was exactly what 4chan wanted. To try and say that the entirety of Nairaland fell for it would just be lying. Most of them did not. But obviously, as usual, the loudest voices were the ones that were the most misguided. Just to put my 2 cents out there, first of all, some of these memes were horribly racist. And secondly, what these 4chaners were doing could have potentially cost lives. It was seriously despicable. Let's just get that straight right now. But in all honesty, even if their behaviour on paper was a bit far-fetched, let me make the point that this was not the most irrational thing in the world. Because in my opinion, it wasn't even the most irrational response to a disease that decade. I mean, lest we forget, guys, the absolutely bonkers conspiracy theories that came out of COVID-19. People thought that it was Bill Gates trying to control the population, or that it was made in a lab, or that it was a biological weapon, or it was 5G, or it was Big Pharma. Like, our response to COVID was just as bad, if not worse, because once again, Ebola killed 50% of the people who caught it. Flip a coin. If you guess wrong, you die. COVID, on the other hand, killed about 1.04% of people who caught it. And of course, it was much more transmissible. It was tragic that so many people that caught it died, but I would still rather take my chances there than with a 50% chance of dying from Ebola. So if this plague goddess had spread throughout the internet and was public enemy number 1 in West Africa, what happened next? Well, kind of nothing. You see, this was a case of mass hysteria, yes, but it was also relatively short-lived. This infamous thread on Nairaland was started on the 17th of September 2014, but by the 26th of October, it would have its last post for almost 5 years. These days, if you go onto the thread, it's literally just people, or maybe even bots, trying to plug streaming websites for some reason. I have no clue what happened here. On top of that, the Ebola outbreak slowed down substantially within West Africa over the winter of 2014, and it would never fully spread to Nigeria. It would never cause the mass chaos that we thought that it might. It slowly became a distant memory, and as of a result, Ebola-chan would fade into the background. She would re-emerge a few years later in the wake of COVID-19 in some lesbian fan art featured alongside COVID-chan, but she would never regain the prevalence that she had a few years ago when she was the catalyst of a month of mass hysteria. And so concludes the ballad of Ebola-chan. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this different type of video, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're nearing 70,000 subscribers, so I would appreciate it so much from the bottom of my heart. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.